Green Lantern 80th anniversary. Issue 1, I guess, or special issue 1, whatever the actual title. Super Spectacular, I believe, is the.
That's the 80th anniversary.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's old. Green Lantern's an old concept. Although it has changed a lot over the years, as
it has.
Obvious.
And that's I do love the Silver Age that both Flash and Green Lantern had this, more sci-fi change. That, Flash became a police scientist powered by, an energy force, and then Green Lantern became a space cop. So that's cool. I do enjoy that. But yeah, this one we get a little bit of everything in this one from all different versions. I'm trying to think if a version of Green Lantern was left out, and I don't think there was.
Not in terms of human lanterns.
No, not of humans, right?
No, there's at least pin-ups of some of the smaller ones.
Yeah.
From more recent times. Although that said, some of the ones who got pin-ups have books right now, which is not true for most of the actual, regular Lanterns all in HAL.
The only ones who didn't get a story is the one in Young Justice, right?
And Far Sector.
In Far Sector, but okay, sure.
And the one from the graphic novel that came out recently, because they get a pin-up as well, so that's why I remember them.
Graphic novel.
Yeah, which is cool they included them, but I would definitely say they are kind of newer, so like I'm okay with them getting the pinups right here, and then if we do another one of these down the line,
They're not at the stage yet of celebration in terms of longevity.
I wasn't complete. If anything, the reason why I even thought about it is because they had pinups. So I was like, oh yeah, you've given them pinups. Even Teen Lantern got a pinup. Yeah. I was like, okay, all right, that's interesting. So that's
it did make me miss reading this on a monthly basis. So
they did just drop a digital first one that maybe will fill the void a little bit.
It's not the same.
It's not.
I know.
Because reading the Jess and then Simon stories back to back, I was kind of like, I missed the Green Lanterns book.
Yeah, so as do I. But anyway, this is 100 pages, 10 stories, obviously different mix of lanterns throughout, different creators. We'll tell you the creators as we're going. The first story, of course, is the James Tynion IV. Gary Frank on the art, and this is the Alan Scott story. Which, by the way,
big guns to start with.
They just like between this and Watchmen, like where's my JSA drawn by Gary Frank book? Can I please have it? Can I please have it?
Coming next year.
Well, here's the thing: is that this even kind of like because the train stuff was in Watchmen, this actually feels like a really natural follow on from what we know of his origin from the Watchmen book. Or from Doomsday Clock, sorry.
Doomsday Clock. So what this felt like was both a prologue to the JSA stuff that's coming, and a what's the one at the end?
Epilogue?
An epilogue.
Epilogue.
It feels like an epilogue to Doomsday Clock at the same time. So it is that bridge that's there, and man, this book looked great.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, the art is fantastic. It's him going to the mother of this kid who died on the train. The one that crashed, where you got the lantern, and we see sort of glimpses of his origin, and then eventually reveals at the end, of course, that she realizes who he is when he pulls out the ring, and talks about the light and how her son, she hopes he didn't die feeling like he always did, which is that he was the light in a darkness, a darkness that he felt alone in, and this idea that he's going to keep on, and there's a lot of flame imagery in here as well, and not even just green. There's a great moment of fire.
I mean, the very first panel is a fireplace.
Yeah. So they keep that theme going throughout the story.
Yeah, because there's definitely subtext, right, about the guy's sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's at least how I read it.
I assumed Alan's partner.
Yeah, that's I was thinking too.
It felt like they had a relationship of I don't know how serious, but it felt like they had some sort of relationship. Is what I was getting from this.
Yeah,
and the mother knew about her son.
Right.
Well, yeah, because that's the heart of the story is that she says, "I hope he didn't die alone," but we know he didn't because Alan was there.
Right.
And it was someone that cared about him. So it's interesting bringing in his sexuality like this in like a more traditional version of Alan Scott because this was something that was introduced with the Earth 2 stuff, right? And
it was.
Yeah. So I think it's very interesting, sort of like, so we're doing classic Alan Scott, JSA in that time period, but we're still going to keep that element to his character. I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah, and it's different to doing a gay character in a modern book because this is still set in the 40s, I think.
Yeah.
So it's very different, and the way it plays it is different.
And that's also how it felt as an epilogue to Doomsday Clock, because there's that reveal about the actor and all of that too. Throughout. So this felt like a nice tag to that story about him being, coming out and being himself, and he can feel, and it's not just him being the Green Lantern, right? He has that light to show others. So I do like that. It just makes me wonder if we're ever gonna tackle, Jade and Obsidian, they're not big losses, and there's ways to do it, but I wonder where that standing is now.
I could see
some multiversal shenanigans.
I can see them doing something with them at some point. The question is, though,
they're adopted.
The question is, though, are we ever going to actually get a goddamn GSA book? And if so, who's actually going to be on it? Because
I'm confident we will, with them showing up in the second issue of Metal, with them showing up in Hawkman in the next few months. I am confident that we will get one spinning out of Metal.
And we had the Wonder Woman introduction to JSA and the Wonder Woman special. So it feels like they're building them through these anniversary things.
Yeah, but that Wonder Woman one was specifically supposed to tie into Generations.
No, I know that, but they could always just go back and retcon that to whatever they do with the JSA, whatever comes out of Metal, like Connor's saying. But it does feel like there was an attempt to start seeding the JSA. And not just, you could always back it up. Well, these are also historic interpretations. This is that version of the JSA for the book. So I don't know. Was there a J story in The Flash?
Yeah, I think so.
Long ago.
And 750? Okay. Yeah, sure there was.
Yeah.
It was so long. It was like the start of the year.
Yeah. So, but no, I really enjoyed this. The Gary Frank art, I mean, he draws mundanity, like them standing on the porch. It's so much more impactful when he does it for whatever reason.
I understand that we will never see a monthly book from Gary Frank again because of this level of work that he's churning out these days.
Oh yeah, it made me miss looking forward to new issues of Doomsday Clock, though. I'll say that much.
Yeah,
but even the title Dark Things cannot stand the light. This idea of this guy's happiness that he has to hide. That ultimately that is the light. The light that'll eventually shine. And so there's a lot of good thematic things here they can do with this sort of remix version of Alan mixing the old and the new. And I actually think it's a really smart place to take the characters. So it was a nice story. It was a good strong start. It felt like it was important because it feels like this is probably going to be like the Alan Scott we're going to have in a book of some kind later.
It defined Alan Scott going forward.
Yeah, and I really like just starting with Alan Scott as well in this book. It would have been easy to start with.
Speaking.
Sure, but it would have been easy to start with whoever they decided was the most popular, probably Hal, because DC loves Hal. So I like this.
Yeah, no, it was really good. Next is the Johns story, Jeff Johns with Ivan Reis. It's called Last Will, and it's a story about Hal landing on a unknown planet. I'll get to it in a minute. Yeah. Where he thinks he's dying.
It seems like.
He thinks he's dying. He thinks he's got so much power left. The ring's telling him that he's got almost no energy. And he's like, "Can you contact anyone?" After trying to locate where he is, and it's like, "I can send 3 messages, and then it's done. The ring's going to be dead." So he records 3 messages. So he sends a message first of all
to the lanterns,
to the core. And then the second message is to Batman, basically apologizing for being a dick, thanking Batman for teaching him humility, and he was always secretly a little bit jealous that Batman didn't need a ring, and that Hal
didn't like that.
Yeah, I felt like he needed a shortcut.
And I knew Matt would hate that page as I was reading.
Yeah, but there's a page in a story later on that he's going to love because of one sentence that's in it, and I'll just say that I was happy at the end of that story that it ended the way I thought it was going to, and I was pleased. More on that one later. But yes, so no, that's made sense. And of course the final message is to Carol, and we have this. I love that the message as he's saying his "I love you" to Carol, that his mask is fading away because the energy is going from the ring.
Right.
And then he has a moment where he thinks he can't breathe, and he's like, "Wait a minute, I can breathe." And then he sort of walks for a couple of feet and realizes he's actually in the desert in Las Vegas, and he sees the city and goes, "I'm never going to hear the end of this." So it's kind of a joke twist ending. Yeah. It's actually the ending to an episode of Twilight Zone that I did not so long ago, the classic Twilight Zone.
No, it is. It's what's that episode?
I shot an arrow into the air.
Shot in the arrow. Yep. But yeah, when he tries to pull the messages back, yeah, that's how, man. This is Johns' Hal, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, it definitely is.
So it felt right, and then it ends with the Justice League kind of pointing and laughing at him. Yeah, the Batman thing went a little bit too far. I think I don't in any predicament see him apologizing to Batman as one of his last things when when you got Ollie and Barry, you know.
Yeah, you'd think he'd say something to one of his actual friends rather than
Yeah,
that
Yeah,
dick
but-
he
not his
likes to punch.
frenemy.
I
So-
I get the logic behind it. Is the idea is that with those guys, he doesn't have this unfinished thing that he has to bury. You know, whereas with the Batman, he has this beef that he wants to make sure is done.
Yeah,
I get it. I get
Sure.
it.
but
Uh,
it was fun. Like I'm not mad at it. It was
Oh,
fine.
yeah,
But
it
I
was-
got to that big eye roll energy.
It was a fun story.
guess you
I was into the Johns one. And obviously, it's a throwback to an era of Green Lantern, probably the most important era of Green Lantern. I think most would agree
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
It's definitely the most influential period of Green Lantern since the creation of Hal Jordan.
And it's also the best selling that the book
Yeah.
had ever been.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, that is what it is. That takes us on to the next story, which is a Sinestro story by Cullen Bunn, which, let's be honest, we see Cullen Bunn's name and we're like,
Yeah, but it's also Sinestro. He did the Sinestro series for a while.
Yes, that's true.
And Sinestro was a Green Lantern. So sure, throw him in
Yeah,
there.
and to be fair,
and you got Mankey, classic Green Lantern artist.
yeah, and Doug
Mhm.
Mankey's another classic Green Lantern artist that you expect to see in this. So this is basically Sinestro trying to convince a Green Lantern who will otherwise die to embrace fear, and the Lantern doesn't. And ultimately, Sinestro just kind of was like, "Well, the ring's already picking your successor." As Sinestro, he sort of like goes over some of his history about how he discovered
Mhm.
fear and how he embraced the power of fear. And that's basically it. It's basically like this is. I mean, it's not surprising because it's the Cullen Bunn story, but definitely out of the three so far, this is my least favorite, just because it felt like okay, the point it's making about Sinestro being this kind of like unforgiving.
It's not terrible. It's just really standard Sinestro 101.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
in
it's
6
the
pages.
Sinestro I miss. Yeah. Well, it's the Sinestro that I miss to where he's kind of like his attitude's like, well, having too much will got me into trouble, so I had to embrace fear,
Hmm.
right? And then he gets there, and then he's like, well, will you embrace fear? And the Lantern, full heartedly, he's like, well, no, come on, man. And then he takes care of it,
Yeah.
and so it's just
This one
it's
had
the cold, calculating Sinestro.
yeah, because obviously the first story was maybe this sort of like prologue to this potential future. And a nice touch we didn't mention actually is that Tynan wrote. I'd even be down for Tynan writing GSA if it wasn't for the fact that Batman's double shipping and he's probably too busy with that. But
yeah, because we know he handles teams well.
Yeah.
So,
but it is worth mentioning that Tynan I believe is bisexual, so it's actually a nice touch that they had a writer like that write that story.
Right.
But yeah, this story has nothing to say. Whereas the Johns one's that this kind of like it's a homage to this great period. That's just kind of this doesn't feel like it's a homage to anything. I mean, I don't know if anyone out there's like a huge fan of Cullen Bunn's Sinestro stuff, and it's like this was the.
I'm sure I know a couple people.
I know I read it, but
Don't remember
it's
it.
kind of just there.
Yeah.
I don't remember a lot about it.
Seems no shade to Cullen Bunn, but that seems to be a lot of his stuff.
Yes.
It was there, and I read it, but I don't remember.
It's rarely bad. It's usually perfectly readable, but usually not exciting.
I do remember his Aquaman run, and I was really hoping for Cthulhu, and then it just went away. So I remember that. That was, I think, right before Jeff Parker.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Next story is all about bittersweet, because I believe they did confirm this is the final story that Denny O'Neil has ever written for DC.
And what a story to go out on.
Yeah. It is the Green Lantern, Green Arrow team up story, because of course that was a big, the hard traveling hero stuff was a big
And we
part
got
of.
Mike Grell back on art for it.
Yeah, big part of Green Lantern history. And it's Clock King. Oliver's taking him on. The Clock King jumps with this kid, and the kid might actually die or be in danger. Obviously, Hal shows up and saves the kid. And it's basically this story about Hal saying that he's been away for 2 months and 2 days to gather himself, and ultimately the story ends with Ollie taking the advice and going to do the same in the Fortress of Solitude to calm down, because they're getting a little too violent, they're getting a little bit too aggressive and angry, and a bit too emotional with their work.
He went up to read Walden by Henry David Thoreau to kind of have some peace and quiet and to recenter himself. And there's a line that Denny O'Neil, I don't know how long ago he wrote this, but with everything that's been going on in 2020,
it feels like you could have written it like 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just for him to say, it's not that I've gone soft or wimpy. I realize that not every problem can be solved with violence, right? And I was like, that's a lot coming from a space cop.
Yeah.
You know?
Like the only critique I have of this story is that the page when Hal's sort of explaining all this stuff to Ollie, one of the things in the art is him like in a waterfall with like sparkly bits around him as he's like letting the water. But I thought a bit far, Grill. it feels a bit too schmaltzy.
Hey man,
silly.
Yeah, sure. I mean, but you know,
bother me.
I don't hate it. Yeah,
it's relaxing.
I'm telling you, if I had access to a waterfall right now, I'd go do the same.
I think it was more the little like the lights around him.
I think it's just more. Well, he's on this alien planet, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's just you know what it's like there.
Bit much.
Yeah.
But anyway, he leaves Ollie at the fortress to center himself, and yes, and it ends with a quote saying, "Things do not change, we change," which is from the book. So, solid. Obviously, Grell's an artist of a different time, but he's a very solid artist from that time.
Yeah.
And
His
still
stuff
holds
has
up.
aged really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the last time me and Pete saw him was in Young Justice, where he was drawing the Warlord
That's right.
bits for Connor when he was on Scutaris. So it's good that he's still putting in work, you know.
And it still looks as good as ever as well. It's like, you know, you see some artists when they get to an older age, they're just like, they phone it in, whatever. They don't really need this anymore. It's just because they've been asked to do it for a celebration issue or whatever. They don't necessarily need the paycheck. And it's just like, here you go. But this looks as good as Grell stuff ever did.
Yeah. So that's that story. Next one's called Legacy. This is Ron Mars writing with Darryl Banks on art. This is the Kyle Rayner story, which is him. Hey, watch what noises you're making, because I will make up for it when we get to the guy.
No, I'm not mad at the story. I do like the story. Again, I like meta stories and stuff like this. So for the guy that he's talking to, as he's pulling the stuff out of storage, and he basically recounts the time Kyle was the only Lantern, and how hard must have that been for you, and all this. It's Ron Mars definitely going like,
yeah,
hey, don't forget me. I wrote the character before John's for a very long time. Don't forget that. So it's
a period I've not read much of. You know, I've seen bits and pieces. And,
that's a feature previously run for sure.
It probably is.
You know, it's an interesting story. He's here to collect stuff for Guy, because Guy's building a team.
Warriors Bar.
It's the Warriors Bar.
The Warriors Bar.
He wants the stuff from the original to put in the new one on Oa. Well, I think it was Oa at the time.
Yeah.
Well, there was one on Oa, wasn't there?
Yeah, but I think he redid everything to Mogo. I think that's what he's doing here, is he's picking up that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they even bring up
this was
Simon and Jess.
Yeah, I didn't remember the Warriors Bar, because I feel like probably just because I didn't read anything that the guy's been in the last several years.
No, but Warriors has been a thing for Green Lantern mythos. Like,
yeah, but it's been but how long since I read something?
Quit hating on Guy, all right? I'm not gonna hate on Kyle here. Let's pump the brakes on Guy there, Pete.
I don't think because Simon and Jesse's book never really went there. If it did, it was so brief that it didn't register with me.
No.
It was definitely around in Hallam Pals, wasn't it?
Yeah. Which obviously
it's where him and Kilowog, not Kilowog, Arkillo.
Yeah,
it's where they bonded.
But anyway, so he's collected the stuff, and the big thing that happens, because he's talking about all the other lanterns, we get a nice line-up shot of them, and all that.
Yep.
Basically, this alien robot thing, which was supposed to be inactive, turns on, and ends up in a big fight, wrecking everything that he was here for, and, you know, it just kind of ends with this kind of positive message. You know, Kyle obviously wins and saves the day. It talks about how, you know, he's more stronger with friends than he is alone, and why it's okay that there's more lanterns now. But it ends with this kind of message of just saying, hey, it's alright, you know, we'll build something new. It doesn't matter that all this old stuff got wrecked. We'll just keep building stuff new.
He is the torchbearer. I always liked that that's what Johns had done with him when he brought Hal back, is that Kyle was still important because he kept the Green Lantern, legacy alive when there was no core, and it, Ganthet hand selected him. So just the idea of him being the torchbearer, and Mars brings that up here. You know, he carried the light because he had to, and he's fine with being that character. But yeah, it's, turns out Ron Mars still can write a Kyle Rayner story.
It actually kind of nicely thematically ties into that first Alan Scott story in a little way. Just, the idea of like he was alone, he was the only light, and then eventually there was others, and eventually he wasn't alone anymore. You know, I think it makes going, by the way. So, I will not say no to Joelle Jones, Jessica Cruz pinup. Just on that page.
I've been looking for a new background for my phone for a very long time, and couldn't find any, worthy. I've looked for a bunch, which then led me to look up Joelle Jones Starfire, and I found a very nice, I don't know if it was a commission.
Why have I not seen this?
Yeah, I'll send it to the chat real quick.
Yeah. How dare you not have shown me this already?
Well, with that said, we'll move on. Creators aren't here at the start, but this is Tomasi's story, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is the Guy and Kilowog story. Where Guy is telling stories in a bar, referencing stuff from, I think it's Blackest Night's the main one that he's referencing. And then he gets a call to go with Kilowog to report to a meeting. And they're told to go save a couple of lanterns out on this other planet. And it was the journey there. They're hiding on the asteroid and all the rest of it.
Not just any lanterns. It's Vath in and oh man, what's his name? Izamat. The Rand and Thanagar that they're running. This is basically Tomasi's GLC.
I just couldn't remember what Tulanza was, so I just phrased it that way. But
but no, so it's important. So they're there, and Woggy's super grumpy because you feel like there's something on his mind.
Yeah, he's barking at the new recruits when they're trying to use the gym. He's like, "No, I've got the gym for the next 6 hours. Go away.
Right.
this is Kilowog time." But the whole thing's actually a whole ruse. It's all fake because they're all just luring Kilowog out for his birthday, surprise birthday. The planet that they've went to is actually Mogo in disguise, and basically, Kilowog talks about how he doesn't really like his birthday because it's also the day that his planet died, and. But then he talks about how he's got a new family now, and it's this happy big ending, with them all saying the mantra. So it's a sweet story. It's not my favorite in the book by any means, but
it made me realize, I don't know if I've said this before, but Pete's basically Salak.
What?
Yeah.
How dare you?
You're right, he is.
Yeah, see?
How dare you?
Because he says, where's it at in here? He says, "Don't worry, I got things under control." And then Alex just goes, "Why am I more concerned now?"
Do you know, I'm actually kind of glad that the Guy story turned out to be equal, if not more so, a Kilowog story, because I felt like Kilowog should have a story in this, because he's kind of he's the biggest lantern who's not a human, right? He's the most prominent alien lantern.
He's the next down, and then you could argue like Arisia is pretty up there, right?
Yeah, you're into the ones that you can kind of name off the top of your head.
Yeah,
your
but it's
Tomar,
definitely Kilowog. I mean, he showed up in that terrible movie, so you gotta.
So did everyone else.
Yeah, but they didn't get named, if I remember right. I've only seen it the one time. So yeah.
I thought this one was okay. It didn't pull me away, but it was a nice, sweet sentiment at the end. So then we have Reverse the Polarity, which is Charlotte Fullerton McDuffie and Crisscross as storytellers with Crisscross on pencils. This is the John Stewart, but it's actually a John and Hawkgirl story, which is actually kind of a nice touch.
Yeah, so she is the wife of Dwayne McDuffie.
Yeah.
And being that he was, mostly for the JLA&U cartoon, I feel like this played into that.
Yeah, because obviously,
if
a lot of people discovered John and even Hawkgirl from the Justice League cartoon, obviously they had a romance in that, so this is something that kind of calls back to that history. But it's them taking on Dr. Polaris, some fighting, some ducking and diving. The art's not bad, actually. I thought the art was
no, Crisscross is pretty good.
It's very enjoyable.
I will say it felt the most like an annual story that was just kind of thrown in, and I'm not gonna. I mean, I don't know what Mrs. McDuffie does normally, but the fact that this was meant to honor her husband who's passed and whatnot, I'm not going to beat up on it too much.
Yeah,
I would say I could very much see this as half an episode of like a JLU.
Oh sure. I think this one and the last one I would both say feel that they're the special / annual style of like short story that you throw in, and they're all right. They're not bad.
No, I didn't have any problem with this. I got to this one and went, oh, okay, this is what this one is.
Yeah. It ends with a dedication to Dwayne, which is nice. So not bad. And then we got the Four Corpsmen story.
Four Corpsmen.
Oh, there's the President Corpsman. Sorry, I didn't read that
I
run.
think you kind of have to for it to,
Yeah.
to work properly with Horsemen.
Yeah. So this is an old man, or like an old man lantern kind of thing, where you've got Kyle, John, and Hal in a bar that they come to every year to talk about the old days, and they're all much older, and they're sort of talking about Guy being late. And so on, and they keep going to telling stories, various ones. Obviously, all of them kind of feature Guy, being naked at one point with Sinestro, all that
was
stuff.
The one I was like, okay, the nitty, you're going a little bit too far with Guy there.
This is the one that reminds me of Venditti's favorite lantern is definitely Guy.
Joe, that was him distracting Sinestro by being naked.
Yeah.
It's basically Star-Lord dancing to distract the villain at the end of Guardians, and I feel like similar vibes.
Yeah, I definitely, had he not played Star-Lord, if they were going to relaunch Green Lantern, I think Chris Pratt would have been the ideal guy, because he doesn't necessarily have to be dickish, but he can have that chip on his shoulder, Star-Lord style,
Yeah.
So
about halfway through the story, I realized what it was doing. I'm like, oh my god, Guy's
after
dead.
a few pages, it's like, this is them reminiscing about him.
Guy's so dead.
I'm not gonna say that I teared up, because I didn't, but it got a little bit dusty.
Oh, I teared up with happiness.
Yeah, of course you did, you monster.
He clearly went out a hero, and this is them honoring him every year. And
every
you
year,
should be more respectful.
Well, and just the lady going too.
Oh, and did he go out a hero though? Because I mean, not that I'm saying that he wasn't a hero. No. I'm saying that, like, I assume that he came for these meetings for however long he was alive, and then died naturally at some point.
I see. I don't take it as died naturally.
Yeah, that's what I took it. Yeah.
No, see, I took it as he died in the line of duty.
Oh, really?
I'm assuming he died 17 years ago, and that's why they come here every year on the anniversary, and this is their 17th.
I don't know,
it may be that
the lady taking their thing is like, oh, is Guy running late again? So no, I do take it as he has died, but but or maybe she just doesn't want to approach it with them because they know.
Oh, sure.
But maybe she knows as well, and it's like
I took it as he was coming.
Same thing every year.
I assumed that he was part of this tradition as well until he died at some point. He was just the first to die, for whatever luck or reason.
That's how I read it too.
Yeah, he died somewhere online.
The way that they go visit his headstone is he died, at least in my headcanon now. He died in the line of duty, and that's why he's the first to go, because he is the first one to rush in.
Wait, hold on, Matt. You've both agreed and disagreed with me. Which one is it?
No.
I'm confused.
So he was, but he was still active. Maybe the rest of them weren't active anymore, right? But so they did meet up until a point.
Okay, so
you think in the line of duty? So you think he was still going?
So you think the tradition already started, but he was still active for whatever reason and died in the line of duty? Okay, that's very specific. But sure.
I mean, there's no stopping Guy. But like John says, take a Guy Gardner over a Batman any day.
Yeah, I knew Matt was going to love that line. I knew that Matt was going.
And also because they kept going, the 4 legs on the table, 4 houses on the wall, 4 seats in a Mustang GT, and I was just like, they're going to do it. They're going to do it, and boom, they do at the end, and they hold up the 4 horsemen, which, so good.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Probably my favorite story.
How could Car even get into this? This is all wrestling references.
This was all. It doesn't matter anymore because he did so much of this during Venditti's own run that even not knowing the wrestling context, because this was established with all of them as younger men in Venditti's run, it feels like a callback to that perfectly fine. So it works.
Yeah, so I did like the idea that they have this sort of joke where they realize that after all these years that the tables in this bar actually have like one center post and not 4 legs, realizing the thing they've been saying is kind of stupid. But it's kind of a nice message there that they're actually all just one. They're all just one. They're not 4 separate things. One. Yeah.
They hold it up regardless.
That's a nice message.
I also felt that they drew Kyle as Daddy O'Neill. He's wearing a black turtleneck and glasses. So I don't know if that's intentional. Because it seems to be this had to have been in production, right? Before Danny O'Neill had passed. But if you're gonna make someone the old artist, right? Where's people to base them on?
And Old Man Hal is a lot easier because we had Old Hal for a long time.
Yeah.
And John doesn't really look like he's aged. He's aged the most gracefully,
He's a little.
So-
He does look older, but yeah, he's definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's, they could have cheaped it out and given him the gray hair all the way
Yeah, I
around,
think
but
just keeping the buzz cut and stuff, it keeps him looking consistent, so
Yeah.
it helps
Yeah.
the age process.
So our next story is The Voice, which is the Miriko Tamaki story about Jessica Cruz with Mirka Andolfo on the art. So I was looking forward to this one because I love Tamaki, who's not been writing enough recently, and obviously I'm excited because Wonder Woman's coming. But obviously I love Jessica Cruz, and I've not been able to read Jessica Cruz in too long. You bastards!
Years at this point.
Yeah. So this is a story basically about her like associating with her anxiety, like objects and like is the bad luck I had on this last mission because the last time I touched the knife,
Yeah, I think a lot of this story feels in a way similar to me to the Cullen Bunn one, in that it's very much a Jessica Cruz 101
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Which I think it's well written. I think the art is not bad. Sometimes her face when she's looking down at the sink there, for example, I think her face looks kind of weird.
That's
very
Nick
manga-esque.
Randolpho style
Yeah.
all over. If you've read, I've read quite a bit of her stuff now, and it's just kind of her style.
Yeah, I like a lot of it though. I like that panel where she's leaving her apartment and it's just a silhouette with a light.
I think she did quite a bit on Bombshells, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah. So they're fighting. I assume that's a king shark.
one of them.
They change how king shark what type of shark he is all the time. I can never keep track. But she makes a giant kitchen knife to like stab King Shark with, which is really dark in a way when you think about it.
Leading Simon to go, damn, she ain't playing.
Yeah.
No.
Like, am I wrong? Was that serrated? Better for slicing and dicing.
Pancakes?
Yeah.
Which I love the callback to the pancakes.
No, it's a nice, pleasant one. Like you say, though, there's not really get much of a story there, and it's just kind of here's 101 Jessica Cruz. Hey, if they want to give Tamaki a second book and it's like an ongoing Jessica Cruz book, I'm okay with that. Just do it.
Yeah.
You'd be okay with anyone taking this a Jessica Cruz book?
Not anyone.
Well, not anyone, because he's not reading Justice League Odyssey.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean a dedicated Jessica Cruz book though, not Jessica Cruz happens to feature.
Well,
in this
no,
too.
because if Scott Lobdell was writing that, I'd be livid and crying and weeping over it.
And then you'd read it anyway.
Nah.
He's not you with Red Hood.
I like how there was a moment there where he did think about it for a second.
No. So the next story is the Baz story, which is called Homegrown Hero, with Sina Grace writing with Ramon Villalobos on the art, and this is it's kind of 101, but I think it's of Simon, but it's 101 with a bit more bite, I think, because it gets really topical and really political and doesn't shy away from what it's trying to do.
Yeah, you say it feels 101 in the same way that this is still just that core thing that has been the case with Baz since it was introduced.
Yeah,
it goes further with it though.
As subtle as a sledgehammer. I almost kind of wish like Mark Russell, who's a little bit more adept at working the nuances of politics and the characters.
I think Russell tends to satirize it more than this.
Yeah, whereas this felt very broad stroke, which that's fine considering the state of the world. I'm realizing the world is more broad strokes than we ever thought.
Yeah, maybe we need the broad strokes here.
Right.
We'll need the sledgehammer to the face again.
Right. So to me, who I've gotten this with Simon a lot, that there's people out there that don't. You know what I mean? So like again, it's not bad. It's just to me, it's a little bit clumsy and clunky.
Yeah, they go to it's like an art gallery showing, but specifically like a Muslim art gallery showing.
Yeah.
And there's basically Simon stops a mass shooter, who's going to attack, and then goes and like stops like his buddies in his group from doing something even worse. But it's kind of just the mission statement of Simon and his treatment in America and just attacking these just straight up terrorists and sort of saving everyone, and because he's talking about how at one point he says maybe he shouldn't do this, he'll get the core on something. I think it's his mum or his auntie who says no, like it's important that they see you do this, that they see you be the hero. So it's got all the right messaging you probably want from it. It's got the and the art's I think pretty solid. It's a very different style from a lot of the other art, and the coloring especially is very different from the rest of the book. But
it's very flat colors, as opposed to the rest.
It's pleasing enough to the eye, though. I think.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It definitely felt like like 100 bullets, like the same kind of, you know. I don't. It's not really flat colors, but I guess they kind of are, right?
Yeah, I think it's no as well. The pencils are not as clean. And again, not in a bad way, but
No.
most of the rest of the book features really tight pencils and inks, whereas this feels looser.
Yeah.
Just makes it feel different.
But no, it was really good. It's a nice Simon story, and like his aunt coming from Lebanon, I thought that was a nice little touch because this is an outsider.
Yeah.
Right? She's not, she doesn't live in Michigan with them, so of course she's not going to look at it, and he gets that perspective that he kind of needs.
I think it's interesting that, unlike a lot of these other specials recently, not all of them, because some of them haven't, but a lot of them tend to have a story at the end, which is kind of the current writer on the books teasing their next thing, or like where the main book's going to be going.
Yeah.
But the bizarre thing here is that outside of Grant Morrison's book, and I guess Far Sector to an extent, but that's kind of the separate own thing, there isn't really an ongoing Green Lantern book that is, heavily into all the stuff where they're teasing stuff here. I mean, obviously, the Alan Scott thing feels like it is kind of a little bit, but maybe a bit more vaguely. Yeah. It can't necessarily properly commit to what it's doing yet.
And I kind of like that in an anniversary issue. That let's just celebrate the character, and you don't really have to feel like it's got to tie into going forward. So
okay, I mean, yeah, sure, but that's a preference thing. What the point I was trying to make is it's a little bit sad that this one just doesn't have the. Like, well,
yeah,
they can't do it because there's nothing to tie into. That's what I was getting at. Is it's kind of sad.
And again, no quality towards the Grant Morrison thing, but I don't like that he's taken away a whole area of a DC, that I enjoy.
As someone, again, I'm enjoying that book. When I'm always behind, but when I sit down and read it,
enjoyed enough to catch up there, Connor.
I've got like 3 issues stacked behind me, and I'm like looking forward. I'll read these. I'm really enjoying binging it, like every few issues.
Yeah, it's especially bad those some weeks where Connor's got like 3 books versus us having like 7 because he's dropped so many other things he doesn't like, but he can't catch up on the one book that he's reading that we don't.
I know. And I am enjoying that book. I have like 3 issues behind me. I just got the last issue, this week. I think it came out. I don't know if it came out this week because comic stores are on a bit of a delay over here at the minute. So it might have been last week, but either way, I got it this week, so I'll read it soon. But my point was, I'm enjoying that book, but I would like a second book where we do other Green Lantern things, like do a core book alongside it. It's the same thing I say that I really dislike Bendis having both Superman and Action because it completely locks me out of reading both. I would like the option to there's someone else on one of them that I can try.
I wish I knew back when you started saying that, back when it was announced for books. Like, I started a counter. Because I feel like we'd be up to like at least 50 by now. You saying almost that exact thing where I wish Bendis wasn't on both books because then I'd get to read one and not...
Well, that's how strong I feel about it. I would really like to read Superman as one of the pillars of DC.
I understand it. I'm not arguing with him on this, because I get it. So...
I'm not taking it... Yeah, I don't want to take it away from people who are enjoying it. It's just you can have your book and I'll have a different one.
I just feel it is a little bit different though, Connor, because whereas Bendis has 2 books, right? They just got rid of the Green Lanterns book. It would have been fine if they had just got rid of Hal and Pals and made that Morrison's Green Lantern with Sharp and left Green Lanterns alone.
I still don't understand why we don't have 2.
And to be fair with Superman, like there's so many other places with Superman as well. Like you're reading, Superman, Batman, or Batman, Superman, more accurate. Obviously, he's in Justice League. He's in, he's in Lois Lane. Superman pops up in a lot of places. Typically,
not so much with the lanterns. You know, even Jess and Odyssey. That's really about it. And then John in
Justice League. Yeah,
Justice League. What are Kyle and Guy up to? What's Simon up to?
I can't remember the last time we saw Simon anywhere. Not counting this issue, obviously.
Well, it was Green Lanterns. It was that last issue.
Has he not been in anything?
Oh no, he's popped up for brief appearances since. We've definitely seen him since then.
I don't remember.
I don't remember him.
And the reason why I know that we definitely did is because I remember thinking when we saw him, oh hey, it's weird that this is the only time I've seen Simon since that book ended. So it's definitely happened once or twice, but admittedly it's been very few and far between in some small ways. So so that's the Green Lantern special though. Honestly, one of the better overall specials, I think. I don't know if there was any stinkers in here. Nothing that stuck out as being this.
There was only 2 or 3 that felt like, oh, this is just a standard one of these stories, and most of them felt like they had a nice point to them.
I guess I'll ask the question, Matt. What was your favorite out of the the 10 stories.
Do you have to ask?
This is the Horseman.
It's the course one followed closely by the Alan Scott story. That one was super solid.
Yeah, it mentions the Alan Scott one. I mean,
yeah.
partly because it's the Gary Frank art, partly because I love the sort of bringing the sexuality into the old version of the character, but also the tease of a future JSA. Like, everything about it just was fire and it was exciting. What's your favorite, Connor?
Yeah, it's probably the Alan Scott one. Let's be honest.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a shame that it peaked right at the start, but you know.
But it didn't disappoint me as it went on. Though. It wasn't like this is so much better and everything else pales in comparison. It was like, because we had that straight into Jeff Johns.
Yeah.
And then I say I really like the Venditti one later, and the Tomasi one I think I liked more than Pete did as well.
Yeah, you just reminded me because it was all this stuff from Lanterns Past. They bring up one of my favorite Green Lantern stories, which was from right before Tomasi took over. Dave Gibbons was writing, and it's called The Corpse, or it's Corpse. They bring up the characters in the back matter, right, and the secret files kind of deal. And so I was like, oh man, so they're officially canon now, because that was always kind of that happened before. We're not going to talk about it anymore. So that means they're out there somewhere. So writers, once Morrison's done, it wouldn't surprise me if Morrison ends up throwing them in there, and then it's going to make me read it.
He might have done already, and I just don't recognize them because I've not read that stuff.
Morrison's going to do a season 3, Matt. Just accept that you're not getting Green Lantern for another 4 years. It's fine.
I'll just go back and read. I'll pull my back issues out, and I'll just go back and read. It's fine. There's plenty. But yeah, when you were saying that, I had the Johns, they had this, and I was like, oh yeah, even though there wasn't a story about that, they included those characters in.
Hey Matt, if we're lucky, maybe all the relaunching after Death Metal ends, they'll do to his Green Lantern what happened to Batman Incorporated, where it kind of gets put to the side. It'll finish as its own separate thing.
Yeah.
But
it already is its own separate thing.
But even more so, like
it'll allow us to have a Green Lantern book back, and at this point, if it is just Jess or Simon or just John,
that could be
fine.
Whoever,
It doesn't have to be my favorite. It doesn't be Guy or Hal or Kyle.
The simplest thing to do is just give us a core book and just rotate through. Do a couple issues of this one, an arc of them.
Right.
Just treat it as a genuine ensemble. Do a thing where, it's like you've got a cast of like half a dozen or so characters, and sometimes.
And before the comments go wild with Far Sector's a Green Lantern book. Yeah, it's not just the Green Lantern thing. I like my
characters
section, right? That section of the universe,
dealing with the different core stuff and
Far Sector's a very good book, but it's not actually scratching the Green Lantern itch itself.
No, it's a great book, but I wouldn't say it's a Green Lantern book.
I am very excited to see her integrate with the wider Green Lantern universe after that book.
Oh yeah, if they do that, then great.
They threw her in the Secret Files as well, so there's definitely more going on with it. She is a Lantern, but really not. You know what I mean? Like there's some weird. Because did she have a designate? I didn't see. I have to look this up now. Her sector designate.
No, because she was new and she just got shipped off to that distant.
No,
planet.
I know, but it says sector. Yeah, no, it's just Joe Mullion.
So it's not
Kelly
like a number.
Yeah, sector unknown.
Right, and sector with Teen Lantern in A.
That makes sense. Just, not actually a member of the corps.
Yeah, she jerry-rigged an old battery.
Right. Well, and seeing some of these other ones too, like learning that Rand and Thanagar are in sector 2682. That's something I didn't know off the top of my head.
That's a bit of trivia Matt's going to memorize, so that whenever it comes up, he's going to know when.
He already has.
We're running Thanagar.
And then, and then just the certain characters like I forgot about.
Actually,
like Anu.
That was a touch that I think I liked. I think it's in the Sinestro story. The Lantern is dying. His sector was like 1961, which that was Hal Jordan's first year, right? 1961.
Yeah, 1961. Yeah.
Nice touch. Very convenient that there's 4 digits, so they can put any years when they want to, if they want to reference something.
It is useful, isn't it?
So there you go. I guess we'll rate the book then. Matt, what are you giving Green Lantern's super spectacular 80th anniversary, 100-page mammoth beast issue 1?
I'm gonna give this an 8.
Connor.
Yeah, I'll probably give it the 8 as well.
I will also give it the 8. If it was a standalone thing with that Alan Scott story, it'd probably be a 9. But obviously you have to balance things out with everything else.
Right.
So.